Hey everyone, today I have my choices for February for getting Legend for the first time. These are decks that I recommend players who are trying to get Legend and have never gotten Legend to play. There are lots of different decks you can get Legend. There are decks that even people get #1 Legend. But these are the decks that I think you're most likely to have success with, and especially a lot of people don't know what they want. They don't know what kind of deck to play. And I think one of the biggest, these are all kind of tempo decks. First two are burn tempo, sort of more burny, and the later three are more board based. They are all board based and they all have a little bit of burn, but I think the board based style is actually a better choice. So the ones later in the video, I think are going to get my #1 picks, and my early ones are still very good. So these 5 decks that I think if you're trying to get Legend for the first time, these are all great choices. They're all high win rate decks. They're all fantastic choices to get to Legend. So first we have Frost Death Knight. You could see, so Frost Death Knight is a very kind of plays minions, but they're kind of sort of filler, and then you have your powerful frost stuff. So you're kind of playing minions, maybe you play a Vicious on 1, you play a Harbinger on 2, but you're really trying to get, maybe a duplicate on your Lady Death with her, and you have all these things that are just kind of getting that little chip burn. So if you slam down Therizion against a deck, often to remove that card because he's so annoying, he's the Reborn, Battlecry, and Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to a random enemy. You often will do 6 damage to your opponent's face. So your opponent all of a sudden is finally stabilizing board if they're maybe not an a powerful tempo deck, and then all of a sudden they start to this. You go Frostburn's Fury on their face, and then you finish them off with Glacial Advance. Sorry, this card got nerfed, but the deck is still very, very strong. So really strong deck. Next we got Aggro Mage. This is the highest win rate deck in the game right now at top 1000 Legend. I know a friend, Gamer RBG, just got rank 1 Legend with it, but it's also just a really good deck to get Legend. It's another deck that is a little less standard. You're using a lot more burn, which is slightly more advanced. So it is not one of my #1 picks for just getting to Legend for the first time, but it's still a great choice. You're kind of tempoing out, that you're trying to get a big Deathborn off, often trying to get Egwin down, and then finish off with burn. The skill of this deck is trying to figure out what kind of win condition you're going for. Are you going for board? When do you switch to burn? Do you fight for board? Do you give up board? Because you can just give up board and start throwing frozen touches at the face, freezing their board, using flurries, trying to get to turn 8, so your arcane bolts go from 2 to 3 damage with the Mana Thirst. You can see here, if I behind me, let's see. So yeah, so really powerful deck, best deck in the game statistically right now, but not my #1 choice. So, but if you like this style, still obviously amazing choice. Next, we got Unholy Death Knight. This is the deck I've kind of had the most fun playing. This is a new style, and what I like about it is it's very kind of it's board based, but it has a lot more value than you'd think. You can use, so if you're up in a control matchup, you can use Famished Fool to just get more boards, and you might be looking like you're falling behind against a deck, and then you go something like Hawk Strider. Let's say you get to turn 8, Nerubian, and like a Body Bagger, and then all of a sudden your whole board has Death Rattle. Your opponent can't quite lethal you, and you get a Grave Strength off. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot more nuance to the deck than just spending your mana. I think players will think, oh, it's a board base, I just play minions, win the game, and yes, that will get you to Legend. Remember, I've said this on the stream many times. If you want to get to Legend, put as much stats on possible every turn, and remove as much stats on possible on your opponent's board. Find the net maximum. That's the very simple heuristic. It gets more complicated as you get better, but as I think the famous meme is, removing your opponent's tempo while developing your own gets Legend. Spend your mana, develop more stuff. Don't worry about value too much. Eventually, if you want to get really high Legend, you're gonna have to go full circle and learn the nuances of things, but in the beginning, just spend your mana, play stuff. And so this deck, if you mulligan hard, you hit a Body Bagger and like a Battlefiend Necromancer, you could just play those two. And often against a player who doesn't know how to fight board for hard, which is players at the lower ranks, this will just solo the game. So really strong deck. Next, we've got Pure Paladin. This deck is very repetitive, which I think is actually very good for a player getting to Legend for the first time. You're tempoing out, you're timing your you're timing your order in the court at the right time. You want to time it to a spot where, so maybe you're going for a Countess on 7, maybe you're going for Countess on 5 with coin on Blood Crusader, maybe you're waiting to get your stuff down, maybe you're going for more tempo. But a lot of the skill of the deck is that timing. So you're playing for tempo, but you have to think, okay, am I going for a Countess on 7? Can I afford to use the Blood Crusader? Sometimes your opponent's like a Frost Death Knight and you've taken too much damage and you can't really afford to play the Crusader because that 7 health will make it too easy. Where sometimes your opponent's a deck that doesn't have burn and you can go down to 4 or 3 life and then still win the game because they're a deck that isn't very good at burning, especially through the taunts of your Light Rays. So that's a lot of the skill of the deck. Where the deck gets interesting and less repetitive is how you use your Countess. So what I like about this deck for someone getting Legend the first time, the beginning game is very repetitive, and that's good for you to master that. But then when you get your different legendaries, finding different legendaries and finding the outs to win is really nuanced and really different. So a really interesting deck, I think a really good deck for getting Legend for the first time. Repetitive in some ways, different in others, so you can get those reps in and really kind of master the style of the deck. Also a very high win rate deck as well. And finally, my number one choice, and this isn't as good statistically as some of the decks, but I've known so many beginner players to have success with this archetype. This is the Beast Hunter. This is, I believe, the list that I used on my recent YouTube video. It is just a phenomenal deck for jamming in fundamentals. I remember I got number 1 legend with a different version of this deck about 2 months ago, and the reality is the deck is just so solid at jamming fundamentals. You spend your mana, you're developing, you put the most stats on possible, you're looking for high tempo plays, so things like you're working on your mulligan, so things like you'll learn, okay, on coin I keep Peck Collector, and even often going first, even though she's a 5 mana card, because she's so freaking good. Where you might learn, like, okay, I throw away Peasant on coin, but you maybe keep it going first. You're just going to learn all these nuances on, all right, do I go Harpoon Gun or do I go Wild Spirits on 3? That's a tough choice, but these are really good things of, like, I have those simple choices and I don't have really complex choices. So a really complex choice is like when you play 7 or 8 cards, like with a rogue deck, or do really complicated turns. The complicatedness is often value trading, when to go face, when to trade, which value trades to take, how do you develop your minions, which minions do you prioritize, setting up long-term plays. Am I going for Beastalker Tavish here, or am I going to go save coin to maybe go coin Hydraulic on the next turn? These are difficult decisions, and so it's a really, on the surface this deck is simple, but there's still a lot of complexity because Hearthstone is a complex game. So my number 1 choice, I recommend this deck to so many players trying to get Legend. So go ahead and play this deck if you're trying to get Legend. So my choices for February, these are all good decks. If you didn't read your decks here, the reality is you can get to Legend with low win rate decks. People do it every day. But that being said, if you want to make your life easy, one of these 5 decks are all great choices. So anyways, hope to see you guys on the ladder. Talk to you later.